The sirens didn't wail. They never did anymore. Not when he made the arrest himself. Rachel Monroe sat behind the wheel of her parked Civic, headlights off, engine cold. Across the cracked asphalt, under the blue-red spin of cruiser lights, she saw her husband drop to his knees, hands behind his head. Again, a low voice drifted through the air, too far for words but close enough for tone, calm, confident, rehearsed. Officer Jack Delaney. Always the same posture, left hand resting just above the holster, right hand gesturing like he was giving directions to a tourist instead of arresting someone for the third time in 9 months. Rachel's nails dug into her palms. Derek looked worse than usual. His coat was torn, one sleeve stained, probably beer, maybe blood. His face was blank, not surprised, just worn out. Delaney moved with precise economy, no force, no theatrics. He said something low, not for Derek's benefit, but for whoever might be watching. Rachel had watched him before, twice from a kitchen window, once from a stairwell. But this time she was there from the beginning. This time she came to see him. Delaney took Derek's wrists and cuffed him. No struggle. Derek didn't fight anymore. He just winced as the cuffs clicked tight and got hauled to his feet. Rachel's breath slowed. Controlled. She'd seen this exact image in her head 100 times. The cuffs, the stance, the slow walk toward the cruiser. Delaney even glanced over his shoulder once, like he knew she was watching. But his eyes didn't find her. Not yet. She stayed still in the shadows, the car tucked just behind a dead factory entrance, one tire resting on gravel. The last time Delaney arrested Derek, he came to their apartment afterward, claimed he was following up, asked to speak to Rachel alone. She hadn't been wearing a bra. Her sweater was thin. He said something about verifying items in the closet, something about matching serial numbers on electronics. He'd stepped too close, let his arm brush her back as he reached for a shelf. He hadn't touched her in a way she could charge him for. But she remembered the look in his eye when he left. It was the look of a man who thought the badge made him untouchable. Tonight she wasn't here for Derek. She was here for Jack Delaney. As the cruiser door slammed shut and the taillights lit, Delaney circled to the driver's side, adjusted his belt, and slid behind the wheel. He didn't speed off. He never did. He just merged smoothly onto the road, like the arrest was no different than clocking in at a gas station. Rachel exhaled. The lights disappeared down the highway. The silence returned. She opened the glove box and pulled out a small USB drive, labeled in Sharpie Delaney Patrol Zones. She placed it on the dashboard. It caught the moonlight. Next time, he'd pull her over, and next time, the camera would be pointed at him. The kitchen was quiet except for the buzz of the refrigerator and the intermittent tap of Rachel Monroe's fingertip against the trackpad. Her apartment was small, too small for 2 people, and definitely too empty for 1. Dishes still sat in the sink. A laundry basket half filled with her husband's clothes sat untouched by the door, like he'd return any minute. He wouldn't. Derek was booked, again, and this time, she wasn't going to wait for the charges to vanish in some vague bureaucratic shuffle. This time, she was preparing for war. Her laptop screen glowed with lines of text, patrol logs, shift codes, a map. Her eyes flicked from point to point with laser focus. Thursday nights, Sector D13, Patrol ID Delaney J. There he was. Jack Delaney, midnight to 4, solo unit, always in the same part of town. Too quiet, too dark, too isolated. She minimized the tab and opened another, a shopping site, not Amazon, something darker, more direct. She scrolled through spy gear like someone browsing for shoes. Covert dash cam, wide angle, motion activated, no indicator light Bluetooth cabin audio recorder disguised as phone mount pinhole lens, embedded lighter cam add to cart. Overnight delivery. This wasn't just rage anymore. It was logistics. She grabbed her phone and opened a secure messaging app. Rachel, got the gear Rachel, you sure it won't glitch on upload? Friend, solid, 1-click sync, just don't stall once it's live. She didn't reply. Instead, she stood and crossed the room. Her purse was already open on the table. Inside, her keys, lipstick, spare battery pack. She added a flash drive labeled Cam Loop and a burner phone she'd activated that morning. In the corner of the room, hanging like a ghost, was a black dress she hadn't worn since before Derek's second arrest. Low neckline, tight waist, simple, but attention-grabbing. She walked over and ran her fingers down the fabric, then moved to the mirror. Rachel took out her lip gloss, clear, shiny, the kind that glints under traffic stop lighting, and applied it with a steady hand. Don't overdo it, she whispered. not a stripper, just unlucky and flirty. She practiced a smile. Not seductive, not innocent, suggestive. Then she turned on her phone's front camera and hit record. Officer, are you really going to write me up for that? Pause, come on, there must be something I can do. Slight smile, I mean. Anything? She replayed the clip once. Not bad, just the right edge of submissive and sly. She deleted it. No rehearsal would match the real thing. Rachel returned to her laptop and opened the route map one last time. Highway 7, between Walker Ave and Dunham. Minimal street cams, no foot traffic, only one exit east. That's where she'd wait. That's where he'd stop her. And that's where Jack Delaney would lose control of the story, just like he made her lose control in her own living room 2 years ago. She checked the time, 2:56 a.m. 3 nights to go. The city thinned into nothingness by the time Rachel reached the outer edge of Walker Avenue. Empty warehouses blurred past her windows, each one locked behind chain link and sun-bleached signs. The streets were too wide, too quiet, no traffic, no cops, not even a convenience store open this far out, exactly how she needed it. She glanced down at the dash. Camera, armed. Cabin mic, active. Sync, stable. Her phone screen was dark, tucked into a magnetic mount. She knew the app was running. She wouldn't check it again. If she checked, it would mean she was nervous. Rachel wasn't nervous. She was focused. She wore the black dress. Nothing flashy, but just enough. The hem had ridden slightly up as she sat. She let it. Her legs were crossed, one heel pressing against the floor mat in a slow rhythm. The cabin lights were off. Everything that needed to be seen would be seen by him, not the world. She passed a stop sign at 40. No pause, no brake lights. She passed another. No sirens, not yet. Another mile. She swerved slightly across the line, casually careless. The kind of thing that would make a patrol cop tap his brakes and wonder. Still nothing. Come on, Delaney, she muttered, barely audible. A left turn onto Dunham, an illegal U-turn. Still no one. The back of her neck prickled. The waiting wasn't exciting. It was surgical. Then, flash. A bright burst of blue light in her rear view. Her stomach flipped once, not with panic, but with precision. She let her lips part slightly. One hand moved up to her hair, pushing it behind her ear with a practiced flick. She rolled down the window. The cruiser pulled in behind her at a slow, patient angle. No screech, no urgency, just like him. Rachel reached toward the center console and tapped a single button. Live feed started. She looked into the mirror. Her expression was just right. Confused, then sheepish, then sweet. A door opened behind her. Footsteps, crunching gravel. 1, 2, 3. She didn't turn her head yet. Make him come to you. Then the flashlight hit her mirror. High beam, blinding. A silhouette approached. Tall, broad, calm walk, no rush. Her pulse slowed as her smile curled upward. She didn't need to see the face yet. It was him. She could tell by the silence. By the way the light didn't shake. By the deliberate pause before he knocked gently against the glass. Rachel turned toward the window and looked up with practiced surprise. Her voice soft but clear. Oh, was I going a little fast? The flashlight dipped slightly, just enough to reveal a face behind it. Jack Delaney. Same stone-carved jawline. Same barely there scowl. The streaks of gray in his hair were sharper now, framing him like age had carved a badge of experience into his temples. But he hadn't softened. Not even a little. Rachel gave him the exact look she'd practiced, surprised but flirtatious. Her hand hovered near her thigh, thumb grazing the hem of her dress as if by accident. Was I going a little fast? Delaney didn't smile. He never did. License and registration, he said. His voice had changed. Deeper now, maybe rougher from too many cigarettes or too many midnights like this one. But it was unmistakably him. Rachel leaned forward slowly, careful not to seem eager. She opened the glove box, letting her torso shift into the soft yellow glow of his flashlight. She kept her eyes on the papers, but her angle was deliberate. A glimpse of skin, the strap of her dress slipping just slightly down one shoulder. She handed him the ID. Let her fingers linger just a second longer than she should. He took the license without comment. Didn't even glance at her name, just stepped back and walked to the rear of the vehicle. Rachel exhaled softly, then pressed her back to the seat. He hadn't recognized her. Not yet. Or maybe he had, and just didn't show it. She adjusted her dress slightly, and checked the camera sync again on her phone. Still live, still recording. She counted the seconds. 15, 30, 45. Then the beam returned. Delaney reappeared at her window, this time without the flashlight. I'm Officer Delaney with the Highway Patrol. You ran 2 stop signs and made a U-turn without signaling. Is there a reason for that? His tone was flat, professional. Rachel tilted her head slightly, lips parted in a soft sigh. I wasn't really watching where I was going, she said, voice smooth. Kind of a stressful night. He didn't move, didn't blink. Rachel leaned forward again, elbows on the wheel now, looking up at him with exaggerated innocence. Is there anything I can do? She said, letting the words drag just a little to avoid a ticket. Delaney raised an eyebrow. That was it. No smirk, no shift in stance. Just a beat of silence. Then, that depends. Rachel let the pause hang. I mean, she added, I'd really rather not have anything on my record right now. Delaney looked past her for the first time, into the cabin of the car. His eyes paused near the dashboard, then came back to her. I'll be right back, he said, and turned without another word. He walked back to his cruiser, slow, precise. Rachel watched him in the mirror, her breath now coming a little faster. Not from nerves, from momentum. He was thinking about it. The hook was in. She just needed to wait. She tapped her thigh in time with the blinking of the dashcam. 3 blinks, then black. Rachel didn't look in the mirror this time. She waited, still like a snake waiting for the strike to come to her. Her heart beat harder now, not with panic, but with precision. Everything was going according to plan, but Delaney was making it hard. He didn't lean, he didn't leer. He hadn't even called her by name, but he'd looked inside the car, right at the dashboard. He saw something, and he didn't say a word. The cruiser door opened. Rachel reset her expression, soft, breathy, a little anxious, but eager to please. Delaney walked back up. No flashlight this time, no citation in hand. That was her cue. She leaned toward the window again, letting the neckline of her dress dip just a little farther. She ran one hand through her hair, playing with a strand, eyes bright with practiced apology. Officer, she said, lifting her voice like a question, are we okay? He looked at her, unreadable. You said it was a stressful night. Yeah, she bit her lip. You could say that. His hands rested lightly on his belt, nowhere near his weapon. Not defensive, not aggressive, just waiting. Rachel tilted her head, lowered her voice. I didn't realize I was driving like that. I just got distracted. You know how it is when your mind's all over the place. Delaney said nothing, so she went further. She let her fingers drift to the edge of the window frame, slowly brushing against the door's inner panel. Her body turned slightly inward, her voice softer now, almost conspiratorial. I'd rather not deal with a fine tonight, or court. That'd just make a bad week worse. Still silence. She smiled, small and sweet. And I was hoping we could work something out. There it was, the opening. Left just vague enough to offer him an out, but obvious enough to offer something else. Delaney's eyes shifted, not down, not away, but inward, like a calculation. Rachel leaned closer, just an inch, just enough. I'm not trying to be difficult, she added, a whisper now. Just cooperative. Another beat of silence, another measured breath. Then Delaney spoke. I need you to stay in the vehicle, he said flatly. I'll just sit tight. And then, he walked away again. Rachel blinked. Her fingers froze on the window. What are you doing, Jack? He didn't look back. Back at his cruiser, he didn't reach for his radio. He sat down calmly, staring at her through the mirror. He stayed that way for a while, watching her, like he knew something she didn't. Rachel kept her eyes on the rearview mirror. Officer Jack Delaney sat in his cruiser, motionless. The red and blue strobes on his roof had stopped spinning, but the headlights stayed on, high beams flooding the interior of her car, bleaching the dashboard and her face in white. He wasn't on the radio. He wasn't typing. He was just sitting, watching her. She felt it. The camera light on the dash continued its slow blink. Her cabin mic was still hot. She pressed her knees together, posture perfect, framed right in the center of his view. She adjusted the strap of her dress again, a subtle movement like a reset. Then she reached for her compact mirror and opened it, pretending to check her lip gloss, but really watching him through the reflection. He didn't budge. She could see his silhouette, one hand resting on the wheel, one elbow propped on the center console, like he was watching a scene in a movie he'd already seen. Come on, she whispered under her breath. Make a move. And then he did. Delaney stepped out of the cruiser slowly, not stiff, relaxed, no clipboard, no citation. His stride was steady, not aggressive, but it had weight. Rachel adjusted in her seat. She made herself smaller, softer, more vulnerable. It wasn't real. It was the role. The one that made men lean in, men like him. He reached the window and leaned slightly closer, both forearms resting just above the frame. "Rachel," he said. That stopped her. Her stomach flipped, just slightly. He hadn't read her name out loud earlier, not from the license, not once. She blinked. "Yes?" He smiled. "Just a little. Not friendly, not creepy, controlled, measured." "I was thinking," he said. "You said you've had a rough week." She nodded carefully. "I get that," he said. "I've had a few of those myself." She tilted her head, feigning soft curiosity. "Yeah? Yeah." Pause. "Let me ask you something," he said. "Do you always try this hard when you get pulled over?" Rachel's lips parted. He was watching her. Not her chest, not her hands, her eyes. And suddenly she felt like he'd been watching the entire time, from the second she ran that first stop sign. "I don't know what you mean," she said carefully. "Sure you do, a beat." Then Delaney leaned in, just slightly, close enough for his voice to drop low. "You've got a wide-angle lens rigged under your dash. Aftermarket. And that lip gloss in your center console? It's got a micro SD adapter tucked inside it. Saw it on a training sheet 2 months ago." Rachel's heart slammed once in her chest. Her face didn't change. "Not yet. Tell me," Delaney said calmly. "How long have you been planning this?" Silence. Then slowly she looked straight ahead, at the blinking camera. He followed her gaze. Then reached inside, tapped the dash once, and the light went dark. He'd found the feed. Rachel didn't move, didn't breathe. Delaney stepped back from the window and smiled. Just a little, the kind of smile you give someone right before you flip their whole world over. "I'll be right back," he said, then walked away. No threat, no anger, just control, complete, terrifying control. Back in the patrol car, Jack Delaney didn't touch the computer right away. He just sat in the silence, watching the blur of Rachel's silhouette in the side mirror. The way she crossed her legs, the way she didn't fidget, not like someone who was scared, like someone rehearsed, calculated. That's what bothered him most. She was too good at this. He leaned forward finally, cracked his knuckles once, and pulled up the registration on the cruiser console. Monroe, Rachel, connected to, Monroe, Derek, offender ID 145,892nd. Arresting officer, J. Delaney X3. Jack let out a slow exhale through his nose. Of course, she'd come looking for him, and if he were a weaker man, or maybe just a lonelier one, he might have taken the bait. But now it was personal. He stepped out of the cruiser and walked back to her car, each footstep slow, deliberate. Rachel tracked him through the mirror. Her breathing was steady, but her fingers had curled tighter around the wheel. When he reached the window, she didn't play dumb this time. She turned to him, cool and slow, one eyebrow raised. "Everything check out, officer?" His hand rested on the roof of her car, leaning just enough to loom. "Let me save you the trouble," he said. "I know who you are." She tilted her head, letting her hair fall to one side, exposing her shoulder. "Then you know why I'm stressed." "I know your husband," Delaney replied, "and I know his mouth probably filled your head with all kinds of stories." Rachel smiled now, soft, dangerous. He didn't have to say much. "You left an impression all on your own." Delaney's jaw flexed once. She leaned slightly toward the window again, and this time, she didn't bother hiding it. Her voice dropped a note, smoky, deliberate. "I was wondering when you'd remember. Most men don't forget the women they've made strip in their own living rooms." He stared at her. No flinch, no denial. Just stillness. Rachel's hand moved to her thigh, slow and smooth, like she was brushing dust from silk. "You searched me like it was protocol," she whispered. "But you watched like it was personal." Jack didn't speak. Rachel shifted again, enough that the neckline of her dress slid slightly lower, her collarbone catching the wash of light from his cruiser. "This was never about traffic laws," she said. "We both know why I'm out here." She held his eyes, and for a flicker she thought she saw it. That flicker of something breaking, the mask slipping, but then Delaney straightened, backed off one step. "You really thought I'd play along?" he said. "You're still standing here." He gave her a smile now, but it wasn't kind. "You want me to touch you, just enough to ruin me, just enough for your camera to catch it." Rachel didn't answer. Jack leaned in again, one hand bracing the doorframe, eyes narrowing. "I've got a camera too. Two, actually, body and dash. You think I wasn't recording from the second I stopped you?" Rachel's breath caught. He was lying. Maybe, probably, but his voice made it sound true. I've seen setups before, Delaney continued, but I've got to admit, yours, damn slick. You ever think about doing this full time? She smirked. That an offer? He stepped back again, casually. Too casually. I'll be right back, he said again, and with that he turned his back to her and walked off, slow and clean, like he hadn't just gutted her whole plan with 4 sentences. Rachel watched him walk back to the cruiser again. Same pace, same posture, like he had all the time in the world. He wasn't shaken, wasn't running, wasn't even curious anymore. He was confident. And that was worse than any badge or gun. She stared ahead, gripping the wheel, every part of her screaming to stay calm. The blinking light on her dash cam had gone dark. She didn't know how. She hadn't touched it. Maybe he had. Maybe he'd jammed it. Maybe he was bluffing. She didn't know anymore. A minute passed, then another. And then he returned. No ticket in hand, no clipboard, just her lip gloss tube, pinched delicately between his gloved fingers. He held it up like it was evidence in a murder trial. Nice packaging, he said. Custom work? Rachel didn't answer. Delaney leaned into the window again, closer than before, almost inside the car now. The smell of his cologne was faint, clean, no nonsense, something he didn't wear for anyone, just for control. I checked the feed, he said quietly. Clean sync. No local encryption. Guessing you had a burner phone to upload? She gave a small smile, bitter, tired. You going to arrest me for that? He tilted his head. You tried to get a cop to touch you on camera, he said, and you tampered with public surveillance tech. That's entrapment. That's also a felony. Rachel leaned back in her seat, swallowing hard. And you didn't touch me, she said, so we're both walking away clean. Delaney smirked. You're walking, he said, but not clean. He reached into his pocket, not for cuffs, not for a weapon, just a small notepad. Wrote something, ripped it clean, held it out. She took it. A court summons, not a traffic ticket. A formal notice. Appearance required, attempted interference with public official. Below that, typed cleanly, sexual coercion under color of false pretense. Rachel stared at the paper. You're pressing charges? I'm reporting the truth, he said. Same thing you were trying to do. Difference is, I'll back it up with real footage. She shook her head slowly. You think anyone's going to believe you over a woman? Delaney stepped back from the window, folding his arms. They won't have to choose, he said. Your camera got nothing. Mine got everything. High def, time-stamped, unedited. Rachel's breath stuttered once. You lied, she whispered. No, he replied. You lied to yourself. You thought the game stopped at seduction. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Delaney turned to walk back to his cruiser. Paused. And then, without turning around, court's in 2 weeks. Wear something professional. Rachel sat frozen in her seat, the court notice still trembling between her fingers. It didn't feel real. None of it did. The paper was warm from his hand, thin and cheap like a gas station receipt, but the weight of it pressed down like steel. She could still hear her own voice echoing in her head. Come on, there must be something I can do. The camera had heard it too, not hers, his. She had no idea when he turned it on. Maybe it had been running from the start. Maybe he'd never turned it off. That smug, unreadable calm. It hadn't been hesitation. It had been strategy. Delaney opened the cruiser door and slid in, smooth and slow. The red taillights flared to life behind her. Then, something strange. He didn't drive away. Instead, his voice came through her roll-down window again, this time from a distance, amplified slightly by his own palm mic. One more thing, Miss Monroe. Rachel turned her head toward the sound, her mouth dry. Delaney's face was half lit by the dashboard. He looked almost bored. One hand rested casually on the steering wheel. The other held up a phone. Hers. No, not hers. The burner. This yours? He asked. Left it tucked under your seat. Running hot. Streaming to a cloud folder, I assume? Rachel didn't respond. He gave a small nod to himself, then turned the screen toward his own cruiser dash cam. A soft blue light blinked in sync. Smile for the camera, he said evenly. Might be the last time it sees you from this angle. Rachel felt the ground tilt slightly under her. He wasn't angry. He wasn't cruel. He was simply prepared. Delaney held the phone for another few seconds, as if letting her really see it, before slipping it into a small evidence bag, sealing it, and tossing it on his passenger seat. The cruiser's headlights flared brighter. Rachel closed her eyes, and for the first time in hours, she stopped pretending to be in control. The TV was on mute. Rachel sat on the couch in her bathrobe, fingers curled loosely around a mug of coffee gone cold 2 hours ago. The apartment was dim, shades drawn. Her phone buzzed for the 6th time in 15 minutes, but she didn't reach for it. She was watching herself on screen. Not clearly, not directly. The news segment blurred her face slightly, softening the image with just enough filters to meet legal standards. But it was her, no doubt about it, leaning toward a car window, hand drifting along her thigh, lips forming words she could remember without hearing them. The voiceover filled in the blanks. A local woman is under investigation after attempting to seduce and record a state trooper during a routine traffic stop. Sources say the footage was obtained from the officer's own body cam, which corroborates a pattern of staged manipulation, part of what law enforcement analysts call reverse harassment tactics. A clip of Officer Jack Delaney played next, standing at a podium in front of a flag, clean-cut, expression calm. "We train for all kinds of threats, violence, intoxicated drivers, mental health crises, but very few are prepared for something like this. Someone using sexuality as a weapon with the intent of career destruction. That's not pressure, that's predatory." No anger in his tone, just professionalism. Poise. Rachel took a slow sip of the bitter coffee. Didn't blink. A knock at the door made her flinch. She stood, tightening the robe, crossed to the entry and opened it an inch. A courier stood there with a manila envelope. "Miss Monroe?" She nodded. "Legal packet from district court. Requires acknowledgement." He handed over a small clipboard. She signed, closed the door without a word. Back at the table, she tore the seal open. Inside, a court date, a list of charges, a printed notice that State versus Monroe had been filed as a public record. She dropped the pages on the table and stared at them. No panic, no tears, just a slow, creeping realization that it wasn't just her plan that had collapsed. It was her image, her confidence, her voice. Jack Delaney had never raised his voice, never touched her, never gave her anything she could clip or cut. He hadn't needed to. He'd let her say everything herself. She looked back at the screen just as the segment ended with the anchor saying, "The department declined to comment on whether the officer involved would be paired with a partner going forward, but did acknowledge a review of patrol protocols has been initiated." Rachel leaned back, stared at the ceiling. Nothing to see, except everyone was watching now. Rachel Monroe stood between two attorneys in a courtroom colder than it looked. The walls were beige, sterile, textured like dried oatmeal. A ceiling fan turned just slow enough to remind everyone how still the air was. She wore a blazer she hadn't touched in years. Her hair pulled back, no makeup, not because they told her to, but because anything else would look like defiance. Delaney sat across the room at the witness table, uniform pressed, posture perfect. He didn't look at her, not once. "The People versus Rachel Monroe," Judge Klein began. Rachel's name echoed louder than it should have, not just because the room was quiet, but because she didn't feel like a person anymore. She felt like a headline. The assistant district attorney began calmly, almost casually. He described the dash cam, the lip gloss device, the phone app she used to stream live, the precise location she waited in, the suggestive language, the physical positioning. He quoted her words. "Is there anything I can do? I'd really rather not have anything on my record. Some rules are meant to be broken, right?" The jury didn't flinch. They didn't have to. Delaney's body cam footage was played on a monitor. Rachel had watched it before, in her lawyer's office, but it was different now, louder, colder. On screen, her own voice was syrupy, calculated. Delaney's voice was calm, professional. Even when she leaned in, even when she dropped her voice to a whisper, even when her fingers slid along her thigh, he never moved, never touched her, never even leaned closer. His voice stayed level, controlled. "Stay in the vehicle. I'll be right back. Let me save you the trouble. I know who you are." Rachel's own footage, her camera feed, was submitted as corroborating evidence. What she thought would damn him instead damned her. Her public defender made an argument, something about emotional instability, a reaction to repeated harassment, unresolved trauma. But the words hung dry in the air. No one moved. The judge was silent a long moment after closing arguments. Then, attempted entrapment of a public officer, interference with law enforcement under false pretense, unlawful surveillance with intent to damage reputation. Rachel didn't cry when the verdict came. She barely breathed. 18 months, eligible for parole in 9. Court adjourned. The bailiff approached. Her wrists were cuffed gently. No force. As she was led out of the courtroom, she passed by Delaney. He didn't look up. He didn't smile. He didn't have to. Rachel kept her eyes straight ahead. But inside, She could still hear the soft click of his dashcam starting to record. The intake facility was cold. Stainless steel, cinderblock walls, paper uniforms. Rachel Monroe sat on the bench, arms folded across her knees, her eyes half-lidded, skin pale under flickering fluorescent lights. Her hair had been tied back with a rubber band. The shoes didn't fit. Her name was now a number. Her story a file. No one looked at her, not anymore. The guards didn't ask what she did. The other women didn't care. In here they all had reasons. Hers wouldn't matter. The cell door clanked shut behind her. That was it. Elsewhere, in a modest ranch home 2 counties away, Officer Jack Delaney stood in front of his microwave, reheating last night's takeout. Chicken teriyaki. Too much rice. The local news hummed from the living room. He didn't turn it off. He never did anymore. Just let it play, a soft current under the quiet. The anchor's voice carried over the final seconds of a national segment. In the wake of the Monroe case, departments across the country are revisiting their patrol policies. Solo stops are now under review. New training protocols are being tested in 3 states to prepare officers, both male and female, for non-violent sexual manipulation tactics, a previously underreported category of officer vulnerability. A graphic appeared on screen. Reverse harassment. The next battle? Delaney didn't look up. He stirred the rice. The segment cut to a podcast clip. A woman's voice, sharp, incredulous. So now women can't flirt with cops without getting arrested? Are you kidding me? Another voice chimed in. A man this time. It's not flirting if you're live streaming it and baiting him into a career-ending move. That's a hit job. That's not seduction. That's assassination. The screen cut again. A Twitter feed scrolling fast. Hashtag Monroe Trap. Hashtag Dashcam Docently. Hashtag Officer 2 Delaney opened his fridge. Grabbed a beer. Didn't drink it. The TV changed to a panel discussion. Split screen. 4 boxes. It's about power, one guest said. Women have power too, and when they abuse it, especially against men in vulnerable uniform positions, it's still abuse. Delaney sat down. Still didn't speak. He wasn't smiling. He never smiled, not even now. He just sat in the glow of the screen, one hand resting on his knee, the other lightly brushing the edge of the remote. A soft knock came from outside. His new partner, maybe. Patrol started in 20. He stood, took a breath, and turned the TV off. Silence. Just the low hum of the refrigerator, and the sound of a man who did his job, walking out the door again.